In his first interview since winning the U.S. presidential election, Donald Trump seeks to affirm campaign promises while softening his rhetoric. The Ebola epidemic is over, but the stigma survivors face in Sierra Leone continues. And a new film tells the story of the love that changed America. Africa 54 starts right now.
Good evening and welcome. I'm Vincent Makori. This is Africa 54. Now, since winning the U.S. presidential election, Republican Donald Trump has softened his rhetoric, sparking questions about whether he will fulfill his campaign promises. He has also praised his Democratic opponent Hillary Clinton and her husband, former President Bill Clinton, as well as President Barack Obama. The president-elect answered some of these questions in an interview with the CBS television network aired Sunday. Slided Sahok reports.
Trump's unexpected victory has sparked protests in major American cities, and more are planned for January to coincide with his inauguration day.
What I think a protest like this can do is send a message to others in the country who are upset with this new president, and also internationally, that Americans don't support his racist, sexist agenda.
Trump hastened to point out that his former political opponents have offered their support. In an interview for the CBS TV program 60 Minutes, he described the Clintons as a talented family whom he would consider asking for advice. He reaffirmed his intention to erect a wall along the border with Mexico, but conceded that in certain areas it would only be a fence.
Certain areas the wall is more appropriate. I'm very good at this. It's called construction.
Republicans in Congress have made it clear they're not assembling a force to deport an estimated 11 million undocumented immigrants, as Trump has promised to do. In the 60 Minutes interview, he insisted that some of them will be deported.
What we are going to do is get the people that are criminal and have criminal records, gang members, drug dealers. We have a lot of these people, probably 2 million, it could even be 3 million. We're getting them out of our country, or we're going to incarcerate. But we're getting them out of our country. They're here illegally. After the border is secured and after everything gets normalized, we're going to make a determination on the people that you're talking about, who are terrific people.
Former presidential candidate Senator Bernie Sanders said Democrats must start a grassroots movement to fight for what is right.
There is no rational reason why we pay the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs. No rational reason why we are the only major nation on earth that doesn't guarantee health care to all people.
Trump said he would repeal President Obama's signature health care program, but replace it simultaneously with another one that retains some of the provisions from so-called Obamacare. Sladica Hoke, VOA News, Washington.
Well, across the pond, European Union foreign ministers held an informal meeting in Brussels late Sunday to discuss transatlantic relations with the United States under U.S. President-elect Donald Trump's administration. Now, the EU's foreign affairs chief, Federica Mogherini, called the emergency meeting after Trump's stunning victory Tuesday on stated policies that include questioning Washington's commitment to Europe, the Paris Agreement on climate change, and the Iran nuclear deal.
The European Union and the United States are partners and will continue to be partners for what concerns us in the European Union, based on our own values, principles, interests, and also we discussed the need to strengthen the European unity around some key issues that will be even more crucial in the months to come.
Mogherini said the EU would stand strong in its support of the Paris Agreement and the Iran nuclear deal. EU nations are anxious to see how many of Trump's campaign announcements, like isolationist position on security, his rejection of international trade pact, and refusal to criticize Russian President Vladimir Putin, might translate into real policy. The EU foreign ministers meet again formally Monday to discuss strained ties with membership candidate country Turkey, the conflict in Syria and Libya, and defense cooperation with the NATO military alliance. In coming days, Americans will learn of the team President-elect Donald Trump will bring to Washington when he is sworn into office in January. VOA's Michael Bowman reports Trump could offer clues about how he intends to govern by the cabinet he chooses.
I will be president for all Americans.
Inauguration Day is 2 months away, but Donald Trump must make choices that will shape his administration and impact its performance.
Oh, the mood is excellent. We're just working really hard to help form a government.
Under consideration are Trump's strongest advocates during the campaign, like Senator Jeff Sessions, possibly for Secretary of Defense.
Well, NATO is important to the United States.
And former New York Mayor Rudy Giuliani, possibly for Attorney General.
Whatever I want to be, I'll discuss with the president-elect. It would have to be something where I felt he really needed me.
It'll be a fabulous cabinet filled with people who are qualified to do those jobs and who understand very clearly what his goals are. He's laid them out very specifically.
Trump's top surrogate during the campaign, Kellyanne Conway, is thought to be a logical choice for White House spokesperson. She says her boss will be singularly focused on results as president.
The excuses are over. We have a Republican president, Republican House, Republican Senate, so there's a mandate from the public to actually get things done, and he will do that.
While demonstrations against Trump continue in numerous cities, Democratic lawmakers are not ruling out working with the new president on certain items.
We want to see infrastructure development, too. We think all over this country we need to rebuild everything from transit, fiber optic, broadband in our rural areas and urban areas. Those things that's a worthy program. We'll see if he really means it.
But Democrats stress that other Trump promises, like deporting large numbers of undocumented immigrants and enacting the biggest tax cuts in U.S. history, will be fiercely opposed. No one knows what Trump's first moves as president will be, but the team he assembles now could provide some clues. Michael Bowman, VOA News, Washington.
Well, the leader of South Africa's Economic Freedom Fighters Party, Julius Malema, on Monday urged his supporters to occupy white-owned land moments after a court postponed his trial over inciting his supporters to invade land. The ultra-left South African politician wants mines and land nationalized and whites' economic power curbed. He accuses the ruling African National Congress Party of failing to address the inequality of land ownership between blacks and whites since the end of apartheid in 1994. Malema was granted an adjournment to lodge an application with the Constitutional Court to have apartheid law declared unconstitutional. Speaking outside court on Monday, Malema urged his supporters to occupy white-owned land and offered assurance that he would not retreat.
We will do everything in our power, whatever it takes, to collapse white supremacy and replace it with an equal society where there will not be black or white, there will be humanity. All of us who will enjoy the fruits of our freedom.
Malema's 3-year-old party controls 25 of South Africa's 400 parliamentary seats, but there have been signs of growing support since he stepped out of criticism of his former mentor, President Jacob Zuma, currently embroiled in a series of scandals. Well, as a senator, Barack Obama reigned for the White House as a transformational figure in a time of international conflict and a faltering economy. 8 years later, the legacy he will leave is mixed and seemingly rejected by the nation's voters. They elected Donald Trump, who promised to overturn what Obama hoped to leave behind. White House correspondent Cindy Sain takes a look at President Obama's 2 terms in office and asks historians if he lived up to his own very high standards.
And gentlemen, the next First Family of the United States of America.
The first African-American U.S. president and his family shattered 219 years of white male dominance in the White House. But Obama made clear he had broader goals.
Obviously, he is the first African-American president, but he's governed as the president of all Americans, not as the president of a particular group, and that's extremely important in legitimizing, whether it be racial minorities or religious minorities or women, to become president. He's been a great role model. He's been squeaky clean, free of scandal. He's an inspirational speaker.
3, 2. The president's public role as an involved and active father has earned him praise across the political spectrum, including from conservatives such as Eric Erickson, who spoke via Skype.
Seeing both Mr. and Mrs. Obama be parents in public, particularly parents in public where the spotlight is on them and their kids all the time. I think it's been very commendable the way they've raised their kids.
But when it comes to both foreign and domestic policy, historians say Obama's record is mixed. Most cite the operation to kill al-Qaeda leader Osama bin Laden as a major national security success. They also cite the opening of relations with Cuba as a historic breakthrough. The ongoing conflict in Syria and the instability throughout the Middle East are considered by many to be Obama's foreign policy failures. Most would also agree the planned reset with Russia and closer cooperation with China have not gone according to plan. Domestically, experts cite the president's push to expand Americans' access to health care and to legalize gay marriage as his biggest accomplishments. But not everyone is happy about them.
Culturally, he has fundamentally transformed the country. I don't know that long-term, though, it's a good thing. He leaves office with Americans more deeply divided against each other more than ever before.
Asked whether Obama has lived up to his own goal of becoming a transformational president, historian Alan Lichtman blamed Congress for him falling short.
I don't think he's been quite a transformational president. He's certainly been a very important president. And the reason he's not been able to go like one step ahead and become a truly transformational president, an FDR or a Ronald Reagan, is the opposition.
Do you need like a little beat?
President Obama's obvious ease with young people and their attraction to him, like this interaction in Vietnam, is another aspect many admire. As Obama's days in office come to an end, he has a higher approval rating than Ronald Reagan did at the same point in his presidency. And most Americans seem to admire the first family, even if they disagree with some of the president's policies. Cindy Sain, VOA News, the White House.
We want to know what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we cover. Join the conversation on Facebook. The address is Africa54. And check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Find me on Twitter at VOA Vince Makori. Coming up, in Sierra Leone, surviving Ebola was the first challenge, but the stigma remains. Stay with us.
I wanted to present music and a side of American culture that is most important to me, that is a part of who I am. They're going to get some incredible performances. That's one of the things I love, bringing these artists in so you can get to see them do what they do. It's soul music, and that's what music is. It's that which comes from the soul.
We're turning now to West Africa. World Health Organization figures show Sierra Leone lost over 4,000 people to Ebola. A little over 10,000 people are said to have survived. As the country recovers from the impact of the epidemic, survivors continue to suffer the burden of social stigma and poverty. Jackson Bonganye visited one of the survivors in Sierra Leone.
Of the two-bedroom house she shares with her sister. She's an Ebola survivor. She was forced to move from her village of Kenema because her neighbors were threatening her with physical violence. They didn't want an Ebola survivor in their neighborhood. Haja moved in with her sister in Waterloo, a town 30 minutes outside of Freetown.
The life not easy because Waterloo, most of the people are not seminar survivor. Because who say I be to my parents then, I people have no seminar survivor. But from the time I did to my sister, the life not easy for me.
Haja and her two kids contracted Ebola from her husband. Her husband and two kids died. She was the only survivor. Statistics show that over 75% of those who died from Ebola were women. That's because women were on the front line of the epidemic, working as caregivers to the sick.
My husband get the contract from Ebola. So just 2 weeks, my husband passed away. From there, myself have the same system, the same sick. So after 1 week, me and my 2 children start getting sick. So after that, they take me and my children from 2 in the hospital. Just 2 days, my 2 children pass away. So from there, myself, the condition is very rough. So after then, they carry me from in the hospital, Red Cross, Kenema. So I'll be there for just 2 weeks and some days. After that, they say I'll survive.
Haja's new baby is a few months old. The father of the child passed away 3 months into her pregnancy. But she's hopeful that the child will have a brighter future.
I mean a lot for me. Because maybe from time after God make he succeed, God may say nothing happen to him. Maybe after education, he will do something for me.
Right. So your hope about a bright future lies in this little baby. Is it a boy or girl?
Girl.
What's her name?
Ebo.
Ebo?
Yeah.
Okay. Haja says that the stigma towards Ebola survivors like herself is the reason she can't find work. She wants government to step in and fulfill some of the promises they have made to her and thousands of others.
Well, the life is not easy for me because I'm doing nothing.
You don't have a job?
No job.
How do you survive?
Only God and my sister.
Your sister looks after you?
Yeah.
She buys your food?
Yeah, because right now said...
the baby?
Yeah, but right now the place we in now, she ain't have no money to pay, so...
This house?
Yeah, this house, but the man say we're supposed to go. My sister now, she ain't get no way for get money.
Is there a government program to help you survive?
Nothing, no way. No way.
Nothing. Have you tried to go to the Ministry of Health or to talk to your local representative?
They used to call you, go social welfare, they say they get something for you. When you go there, nothing. They can't give you nothing. One time we make meeting, they say social welfare and say they're supposed to give you 400,000. From 6 then nothing, you can't know about the money even.
So you have not received any
nothing.
help at all?
Nothing.
The government of Sierra Leone says that it is working together with international partners like the UN to allocate funds for the social rehabilitation and payment to Ebola survivors. Haja says that would be a welcome relief, but she's worried that the promises might never be fulfilled. For Voice of America, I'm Jackson Vunganyi, Waterloo, Sierra Leone.
Well, it's time now for a short break. Still to come on Africa 54, the love story that changed America hits the big screen. We'll be right back.
Escalating along ethnic lines.
Idan kun je kun zaɓi wani Donald Trump na kuko, ai duka biyu kun yi asara, ko Hillary Clinton ɗin kuka zaɓa ma ba ma tare da ku, ko misƙala zarra. Mun gama da Obama naka, Allah ya san.
En termes d'un bilan, ça paraît lorsqu'on se rappelle de l'étendue gigantesque et qu'à partir du mois de mars, ces sites qui...
Welcome back to Africa 54. I'm Haiti Adams Fitzpatrick. Let's take a look at what is trending this Monday. Now, more and more of us are using our phones to buy gifts, but there are fake apps posing as stores that could steal money and personal information. And don't think that the App Store has your back 100% of the time. Even recognizable brands are getting burned. Security experts have discovered hundreds of apps that are counterfeit between the iOS store for Apple and the Android store for Google. You can protect yourself by checking who published the app and reading reviews and ratings, of course. Well, speaking of online shopping, China's online retail giant Alibaba once again broke its sales record on the shopping day it helped create called Singles Day. Shoppers searched for deeper discounts and lower price tags. Sales on Alibaba's platforms raced to $1 billion in less than 5 minutes. Singles Day is a 24-hour event held annually on November 11th and offers some insight into China's swing to online shopping, especially via smartphones. The discount shopping day, also known as 11/11, still shifts more goods than the Black Friday and Cyber Monday sales days in the United States combined. And finally, could this craze be the new Harlem Shake? The Mannequin Challenge has taken the web by storm. It started in high schools, then made its way to television, rap concerts, politics, and professional sports, including the world's 8 top 10 tennis players. So what is this new social media trend all about? Well, you stand still for a minute and then film yourself and then upload. Well, according to Twitter's history, it was kicked off by high school students in Jacksonville, Florida. So what is the point? Just like many other things on social media, there is no point. We do it for the fun of it. And that, of course, is what is trending today. Vincent, it's back to you.
You're frozen for a minute. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Haiti. Now, in the battle for Mosul, coalition forces in Iraq are continuing to take the fight to the Islamic State. Important archaeological sites in the region have been damaged, and in some cases, they're beyond repair. Now, a dedicated group of scientists armed with computers and 3D printers are determined to reconstruct and preserve the ancient sites and their artifacts. VOA's Kevin Enoch has the details.
The damage to the Syrian city of Palmyra is clear to see. In some cases, it took days to destroy the architectural bones of a city that has survived for thousands of years. But some artifacts from the region date back even further, like this cast of a basket that dates back to 6,500 years BC. Now a group of archaeologists are reproducing them in 3 dimensions.
Although they have already been read, translated, photographed and drawn in the field, the Assyriologists always like to have the real thing. Maybe a next generation may not believe current interpretations. They may want to go back to the objects.
The Dutch team from the University of Leiden and Delft University of Technology are scanning silicone molds of artifacts, then printing them in 3D.
You end up basically with a digital file that is the object. So you can share this object with colleagues on the other side of the world.
Researchers like Mark Whedon from the University of London is grateful for the team's work.
It would be a huge loss to human knowledge if these tablets were not to be recovered in some way. So if there is some way of preserving the information that was held on them through whatever silicon molds have been made, if I understand correctly, that would be absolutely wonderful.
The goal is to save these windows into the past, even as time, and in some cases humanity, slowly destroy them. Kevin Enoch, VOA News, Washington.
Well, did you watch a movie over the weekend? Here's one for you that you may want to add to your watch list. Loving. Based on a true story, Loving offers an intimate portrait of Richard and Mildred Loving, a white man and a black woman who defied the miscegenation laws of their native Virginia in 1957 and got married in neighboring Washington, D.C. Now, the events that unfolded changed America. VOA's Penelope Pulu spoke with the filmmaker and the lead actors in this dramatized landmark story.
I'm gonna build you a house right here, our house. Would you marry me?
Richard and Mildred get married in the nation's capital.
I now pronounce you husband and wife.
But their union is illegal under the Racial Integrity Act of Virginia, where they live.
In here? What you doing in bed with that woman?
I'm his wife. They are arrested, accused, and found guilty.
Richard Perry Loving being a white person and Mildred Jeter being a colored person did unlawfully cohabitate as man and wife.
Richard? The couple has to leave Virginia or face prison. In 1958, they moved to Washington, D.C., away from friends and family. 5 years later, in 1963, inspired by the civil rights movement, Mildred writes to U.S. Attorney General Robert F. Kennedy asking for help. She is then contacted by the Washington chapter of the American Civil Liberties Union.
I believe this is a court battle that could go all the way to the Supreme Court.
Filmmaker Jeff Nichols relied on historical footage and an in-depth documentary about the couple.
I can take care of you. I know that.
But the film's power lies in the way Nichols portrays a nuanced, deep love between two people whose only desire is to live a life together. In 1967, the Supreme Court ruled in their favor. Loving versus Virginia became a landmark case that overturned miscegenation laws around the country. At the recently inaugurated African American Museum in Washington, D.C., Jeff Nichols spoke to VOA about the Oscar buzz his film has generated.
So it's flattering and humbling, but what's important here is the story we're trying to tell, Richard and Mildred's story. I didn't know about it in 2012 when I first heard about it, and that's shameful. This is a fundamental part of our American history.
You think you'll lose?
We may lose the small battles, but win the big war.
Actress Ruth Negga pours her heart into the character of Mildred. Her soulful performance has earned her acclaim. She told VOA what really inspired her to play the reluctant activist was her admiration for her character's immense courage.
How do we find out who we are, really? And usually it's when we're in peril or when we are forced to find out who we are. You know, and I think that's when our true colors show, and it's when we discover our grit and our integrity.
Asked if a film such as Loving could speak to wide audiences in America's current climate of political polarization, Joel Edgerton, who plays Richard Loving, told VOA.
We keep running into the same problems. They'll always be there, and so it's always good to have new stories and sometimes gentle stories that allow us to take a walk, an empathetic walk in someone else's shoes. And I think it's a very special film that will resonate.
Is there anything you'd like me to say to them? And by them, I mean the Supreme Court justices of the United States?
Tell the judge I love my wife.
Penelope Pulu, VOA News, Washington.
Well, and that's our show for today, and I'll be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. For more news, tune in to VOA's evening radio show, Africa News Tonight at 1800 UTC and in the mornings. Today, Break Africa between 0300 and 0600 UTC, Monday through Friday. Thanks a lot for watching from all of us in Washington. Have a good night.
Welcome to the Voice of America's News Words. Here's a story about journalists keeping secret the names of people who give them information.
Confidential. The ability to keep sources confidential is central to the practice of journalism, and it's very difficult for journalists to be able to do their job, which is upholding our democracy, ensuring that the government is transparent and accountable if they're not allowed to keep their sources confidential.
Confidential means to keep a secret. Sometimes journalists keep secret the names of their sources to prevent them from getting into trouble. Friends also keep information confidential.
Now, when you hear the word confidential, you will know what this news word means.
Find us and friend us on Facebook. VOA Learning English.